Why don't you introduce yourself?
All right, so I am Joshua Seidel, writer. I also, as my day job, I help companies find good employees. But my passion is definitely politics, and definitely known for being more on the right side of the spectrum, political spectrum, to say the least, and sort of an anomaly in the Jewish community because of that. And me and other people who are sort of my colleagues, my fellow travelers are trying to really stake our own stake our own claim, kind of make our own niche within the Jewish community, and reach out to other Jews to kind of explain to them that look, what we're doing is actually positive for our community and positive for the United States and the West, and those are good things. And so, in a sense, I suppose I'm part of what might be called, in grand terms, the alt West, and kind of finding my place within that movement.
I can totally agree on that Alt West terminology. Have you ever heard of someone named Jonathan K. Press? He made
I
culturism
think so, but not. I'm not that familiar.
because he talks about culture and he talks about you can be whatever, but as long as you support the West, he's fine with that. And
Yeah.
I can agree with that whole Western terminology if you meet it in something like that.
Here's the thing. I mean, I agree with that. I think if someone is loyal to Western culture, Western values, they have a place here. At the same time, I also agree that it's not likely to happen if the ethnic, religious, racial composition of the West is a certain, percentage. Versus other percentages where it's more likely to happen. Now, it's not to say that it's impossible. I'm not a racial determinist. I think that people can, kind of overcome, what their biology is, but it's simply more difficult and less likely. And so, in that sense, I think I'm maybe a little bit further to the right, or whatever you want to call it, than some of the alt West. But at the same time, I do agree with that. I mean, and that's one thing that I definitely think that some folks aren't thinking through,
Yes.
that talk about pure ethno-states. First of all, there's never really been a pure ethno-state. And second of all, to get there, you would be looking at some kind of a Walking Dead-like scenario. And why would you do that when you don't really have to?
We're
You
in a
know,
Walking Dead
uh,
scenario now.
yeah, we're getting there, right? We're getting there.
I'm
Um,
preparing.
but it's why would you want horrible violence and viciousness when you don't really need it? Um, when the people that are the problem, I think, are fairly visible, and I think could be removed pretty not easily, but without again it being as horrible as math ethnic cleansing would be. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, especially that there's this whole ethno state talking about things. We moved along from the multicultural and diverse thing, and now all of a sudden we have to brace ourselves for the coming red pilling and the ethno state breakdown. So what
yeah,
I'm trying to do is make sure that in case if anybody tries to purge me, so I have my space. As you can see, I'm a
right.
part of the militant Asian Aryan army, so it's a one-man army, but at the same time, this is an important thing I'm doing.
Well, that's what we all have to do now. We all have to figure out, what are we, who we are, because identity now is everything. It's not, I wish it wasn't this way, but this is how it is. And so, we have to react to how things are. We have to realize that, okay, if we want to preserve the West and what its essence is, if we want to preserve the United States and what its essence is, we may have to do things that are outside of, the ordinary democratic tradition, or that involve us connecting with our identity in ways that maybe aren't, you're not going to find in the Constitution. But again, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm not sure if we can get there from here. Meaning, you know, normal, hey, let's just, follow the Constitution, everything will be okay. Well,
Yeah.
so many people aren't doing that, and so many people are finding their tribe and putting their tribe before civic nationalism that we have to respond to that in some way. There has to be a response, and the response can't just be to surrender, the identity battlefield to the left. And again, what that means, and what my place is in that, what the Jewish people's place in that. I haven't, believe me, I haven't figured that all out yet. I think there's a lot to do, but again, we all have to sort of find our own place, and the only way to do that is to talk about it, to do what I say, what a lot of people call producing content. Write about it. Um, you know, reach out to other people that think like you. Try to amalgamize. Try to come up with beliefs you share in common. There's a process, a well-trod process for how you build a group identity, and it's something we all have to kind of start doing.
Yeah, I mean, especially, I mean, you also have been working. Did you help put up the Jewish Alternative webpage? Because
Yes.
people on the alt right are considering it a joke, especially on the alt right, the Radix Journal, some Jewish questions. You'll see a lot of anti-Semitic, classic rhetoric when saying,
Right.
"Are these guys serious?" Even reactionary Jew on Red Ice Radio led to some of the anger
Yeah.
of doxing of other people. And I think it's kind of a shame because I think
It is
there
a
should
shame.
be a dialogue between other Jews and the alt right to establish something in common. And I think that's the whole red pilling generation we're living through. That's post multicultural and diversity.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there was value in dialogue. I mean, honestly, I think we've made our at this point. I mean, I think I've been out there long enough. Reactionary Jew, I think, made his points pretty well, and my attitude toward that is take it or leave it. At some point, I just don't care. I mean, if someone is anti-Semitic to the point where they don't care what a Jewish person says, they're going to have a problem with us. Well, then I don't care what they have to say either. I'm moving on, and again, if what we're doing, I think is pretty visible. What we're talking about, we're not making this stuff up. I mean, we really do feel the way we do.
Mm-hmm.
And my attitude is, okay, take it or leave it. Look at it objectively, and if you agree, you agree. If you don't, you don't. It doesn't mean we have to be like in the same club or like in the same group. I'm not even sure what any of those words mean if you're talking about the alt right. It's just a Radix's website. Okay, well, yeah, people in the comment sections don't like, some of the people in the comment sections don't like us. Well, okay, you can have that comment section. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's what I'm
I
like
mean
at the
our
current moment
our
in time.
our goal really is to reach out to other Jewish people and try to fight the left wing tendencies in the Jewish community and show them that, look, this is you know not only is some of the anti-Semitism you're worried about really, maybe you should be concerned about something else, but that we have a positive agenda that can help the Jewish people.
That's really cool because I think there needs to be a positive bridge between Jews, especially that they might consider the alt right, anti-Semitic, and yet at the same time, I think this is certainly a culture that is happening at the current moment in time where people are now becoming adapted to these things, and that they see that this is not just some fringe elements going on the internet, and
Right.
rather that this is something revolutionary going on. That if Donald Trump is our president, then obviously
Right.
people from the internet, wherever that's esoteric Keck magic or whatever, is making this happen.
Done something right. No, I mean, I think what a lot of us are noticing is that, the anti-white rhetoric and the anti-white institutional attitude and, sort of, all this stuff it really hurts all of us. Any of us that want to live in the West and that want to live in a safe, peaceful West where, where technology is something that's good and where science is something that's good and all these good things about the West. We have running water and, we have peaceful political transitions. These are good things. These aren't things to diss and attack just because white people came up with them. And that's what I think a lot of us are noticing, and that's what's kind of drawing us together. I think is that it's this sort of reaction to this what is this anti-white thing
Yes.
that is really when you kind of distill it, what it really is an attack on the very foundations of what makes the West the West. I mean, some of these people have a beef with things like the scientific method. They have a beef with the very idea of objective reality. And when you get down to it, I mean, they have a beef with, private property. I mean, the basic foundational, just the absolute basic foundational things that make the West what it is, and that separate us from, an Amazon tribe. They have a beef with that stuff, and we're all reacting to it kind of as a group.
Yes, as a group, indeed. I mean, it's not just a one-sided issue, especially coming from it seems to me that this whole red pilling thing can really only happen supposedly among, millennial whites where they're becoming, red pilled, and that
Yeah,
means they should distrust everything multicultural and diverse. And yet at the same time, it excludes other people that are non-white that they can't go in. So you're seeing this something like the alt-light happening or the civic nationalism where you might have Blair White who's a tranny or maybe a black
right.
kid who's saying very similar alt-right things.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
all this is happening, and yet there's this kind of divide between should it be all out, white nationalism, or should it be on the tiptoes of civic nationalism or some kind of
right.
alt-right? I mean, would you consider yourself a proud alt-right position?
I suppose by definition I have to be alt-light because as
Mm-hmm.
a Jewish person living in the United States, and not in the Jewish ethno-state, I am assuming that people are going to make an exception for me. I'm relying on that goodwill, and so in a sense, I do support civic nationalism for the United States. At the same time, I'm sympathetic. It's a difficult position to have, but I am sympathetic to the white nationalists because I understand they're looking at the country, they're seeing it becoming less white, and indeed, we're moving away from constitutional principles, we're moving away from freedom, we're moving away from the economic stability this country used to have. For middle class people, we're moving away from all that as the country gets less white. So I understand why they're looking at that and saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, sure, maybe some of the minorities are okay, but we can't tell the difference. So, what's in this for us? They have their own places they can be, so why don't they go there? I mean, I understand that
Mm-hmm.
position. I'm sympathetic to that position. It's just that position would, again, if that was actually enacted, you're talking about hideous ethnic cleansing and violence. We don't have to. I just don't think we have to do that.
I'm
Not
wearing
yet.
my militant clothing and preparing for the accomplishment of a Rhode Island or Delaware size Eurasian state, where I can hopefully move all the weeb whites and hot Asian girls and everyone who likes
Yeah.
anime to this place.
Yeah.
So
Well,
obviously,
that
I'm
sounds like
prepared to
a
do the job, and this is. I hopefully I could get the Antifa on my side. They know I'm down with it because it's going down, and I'm preparing for the revolution on that. So.
Well, I mean, again, I can't help but be sympathetic to people that feel that way because, again, as a Jewish person, we have that state where we went there and we fought for it, and absolutely, begged our asses off to get money for it. I mean, just did everything we had to do to get that state up and running. And so, can I be sympathetic to other people that want that? Well, absolutely, I can. Um, it's just that I know as a person that I'm perfectly capable of fitting into the United States and not messing the country up like so many other folks seem to be dead set on doing. So
Mm-hmm.
I have to some extent. I mean, otherwise I'm a hypocrite almost to myself if I don't believe in some kind of civic nationalism because I am a living example of a civic nationalist. Um, and I don't care, I don't care, and I would defend that to anyone, any, white nationalist or any alt-righter. I would say, I would defend my record and what I've done for this country to anybody. But, at the same time, again, it's just a tough position to be in because, and this is why I fight left-wing identity politics so hard, because that's really what's driving all this. I mean, the fact that the left controls institutions and they're pushing these identity politics so hard
Mm-hmm.
is really what's motivating really all of this. Quite frankly, if that wasn't there, I don't think the white nationalists would feel as threatened as they do.
Yeah, I know exactly. It's everything's identity politics, like right down from once again, the whole ideal. I like that whole deal of being pro West. It seems like
Yeah.
a lot of people are being skeptical of West because they might think that it has something to do with liking patriarchy or oppressive society. Yet at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It could mean a part of a tradition of a great culture. And you could be like half Asian and be a part of the West and be a part of, taking sides of that. But accordingly, we're living in such a divided era where it seems like the West is only reserved to European people or Judeo-Christian people. And so I guess this whole ethno-nationalism thing is breaking down, and it seems that how long will this how would you define this West definition and who's in and who's out of the West?
Yeah. So that's, I could write a book about that. I mean, I would say that the West as it stands now, and it's evolved, of course, over the years, but that's part of it. Part of it is the ability to evolve. And the recognition that we'll never get there. We haven't ever arrived at the perfect society. We have to always be pragmatic, take a look at what's going on around us, and continue to evolve. So it's a critical tradition. It's not. It's and that's opposed to, for example, Sharia law, which says, okay, once we institute Sharia law, the society is perfect. That's fundamentally anti-West, because there is no set of laws where, okay, we've got the laws written, now we don't need any more laws, society's perfect. I mean, we know that in the West we know that'll never happen. So part of it is understanding that political evolution is important. It's a critical tradition. It's an open tradition. Now, again, not to say the West has always been open, but as of now, we believe in the free exchange of ideas. We believe in scientific progress, in moral progress. I want to say that monotheism is part of the foundation of the West. That's not to say you have to be a monotheist, but you have to understand the influence of Christianity specifically, and the influence of the Bible, and what importance that plays, and have some kind of a respect for that, and not just want to be aggressively attacking it. I could sit here and go on all day, honestly. But basically, I think in its essence, it's an understanding that you have to keep a pragmatic and critical eye to what's going on in society, and keep society evolving towards a better society. Meaning, just one that's where people have more potential and they're able to follow that potential. And again, that's to distinguish it from societies that say, okay, once we once we institute these set of laws, or once this religion's in charge, then we're good, we're done. That's fundamentally anti-West.
Yes, I see. I mean, especially you've probably heard like the whole Patrick Buchanan thing, deaf to the West, and there's this whole pessimism going on about should it be conserved or not, and now we have this whole Richard Spencer ethno-nationalism thing. Meanwhile, I'm joking with this term Aryanism. Have you ever heard of the thing called Israeli Aryanism?
Yeah, but I think only from Robert Stark. I didn't realize that was any really
You gotta
thing.
ask him about it. I'm just an ally in effort. He just basically took my same doctrines and put it on a spin. So, but it is an interesting concept.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, authentically, I consider myself Asian Aryan. Well, it's certainly a good tag for now, but the obviously ideal is I am interested with other Happas and Haffas, white male Asian females and Asian male white females and white weebs and Asians who like Western Civ, all striving to a little small super Chinatown community somewhere, and it just exists now. I'm kind of donning this costume in case if the white nationalists come in and try to put their Spencer ethno-state in, because I will throw girl pillows at them and tell them that anime is great, and preparing for that revolution. So I think it's a serious thing because it's not being addressed, and it's happening on like Twitter, like on #AnimeRight, and it happens through Tumblr and DeviantArt, and people go to, like I said, the four things: the punk rock shows, vegan restaurants, art galleries, and nerd conventions. That's where everyone brings their Asian girlfriend. And so I am a proponent for that, and I'm making sure of a safe ideology in the coming red pilling days, which is going to happen in the next 10 to 20 years.
Well, I currently have it on again, off again. Asian significant other, great
That's
lady,
cool.
but she's from the island of Tinian originally. But anyway, but I was going to say that the West should the West, to me, the West can make a space for the Asian Aryan anime Reich. I mean, the West, the real West should be able to make a space for that. I mean, why not? Why not? I mean, what? I mean, that's what I would say to one of the real serious ethno-nationalists is, okay, like, given that you would have to use violence to get rid of this particular thing right here, why? Why just leave, why not let them be part of something that they want to be a part of? It doesn't hurt you. It helps you. Even, I mean, even God, Nazi Germany had certain minorities. I mean, Rome had minorities. I mean, there's not an example of this Catholic Spanish Empire had minorities. There's really not an example of an empire or a great Western civilization that didn't have some minorities. And there's also not an example of an empire or great Western civilization that spent a whole lot of time persecuting minorities. Or that was really their big focus was, okay, guys, we have to be pure, so let's get rid of all the minorities. That maybe there was inquisitions, but again, it didn't target everybody. It just targeted certain groups that they perceived to be specifically dangerous. And that's different than what the ethno-state people are talking about when they're saying get rid of everybody. I mean, keep in mind Israel, which is the Jewish ethno-state. That it has a lot of minorities. A lot of people that aren't Jewish. So it's make a space. It's not a big deal.
Well, yeah, it is. It is something to look forward to. But I think the space has already happened. I just think right at the current moment, people are asleep, and it's so easy to be a part of the decadent elite and just say, "Oh, it doesn't really exist. This doesn't matter." And
right.
If you say that we can't have a consciousness for multiracial dating because we're universal beings, and so don't think of that in that wise. And so what happens is this whole blindness happens, and then other people who are better at the game basically exploit them, and they do better, and or not that they exploit them, the people who are blind, and this mostly is coming from a white upper class, and it's unfortunate, and that's the whole, I guess, argument from the right-wing side. You have to be racially consciousness, or at least consciousness that you are a part of something bigger. And I think that also works for anyone who is a part of a multiracial community, even though that might, like right now, the multiracial people would want to have benefits of an egalitarian social justice warrior, pot and say, oh yeah, well it doesn't exist, but I'm importantly a part of it. And it's annoying because it's like they are of something. It's just that the problem is it's just a small niche minor thing. But I am very confident and positive that all my friends are half white Asians or white males dating Asian females or vice versa, and it definitely is a thing. It's in every major liberal city, and they don't have the words to describe it, and I'm giving them the words. So
yeah, no, I mean it's definitely a thing, and there's a reason why. It's not it's not coincidence. I mean, there's a reason why whites, Jewish people, Asians. There's a reason why we're somehow able to get along together, better than other groups are. It's not. It's definitely not a coincidence.
Yes, I know. I mean, like, I'm saying the same could be said about the Jewish side, especially that Robert Stark. He himself feels that he's more associated on the white side. He likes blonde Jewish women. I think there are some people as well on the alt-right that does like blonde Jewish women, and it's just, does that make you Jewish or a part of the enemy, even though that both sides can mutually agree upon something like you said called the West or have a white interest? I don't know. That's another thing. I mean, it's a very confusing factor, but Robert Stark often will talk about that there's a secret. But yeah, I mean, it's a difficult subject to even talk about the whole biracial thing, because for one, what I'm advocating is that the radical right doesn't like me is because they're going to put me in an oven. The radical left thinks I'm insensitive and not being too universal. Normies just don't care and think I'm mean. And other Happas say, why aren't you benefiting from affirmative action and our stuff? I've had it, and I'm going to go full Atari Teenage Riot on everyone, and this is Asianarianism, so yeah.
All right. Yeah, no, it's these days it's tough to map out your identity, especially when it's such a big freaking deal to so many people.
I know, right?
And they're just looking for ways to fight you over it. And it's a tough environment.
I know it's a very tough environment. I think it's really cool that the Jewish alternative is happening, is because at least there's some dialogue being built among the angry, you might call anti-Semitic white nationalists, and between Jews that can help you. I mean, what are your thoughts about Kevin McDonald's The Culture of Critique then? I mean, certainly that can be, I know Luke Ford likes that himself, so. and I like it too. I think it's a good book.
Yeah, I actually haven't read it. Surprisingly enough, I know that kind of shocks some people. Like, oh well, that's kind of the important work. And I mean, I will admit that it's possible that Kevin McDonald is right. That there is some kind of genetic thing that's going on that makes Jews predisposed to a certain behavior. I mean, I guess that's a possibility. But I don't know. I mean, I think in the end, again, as I said earlier, I mean, people aren't slaves to their genetics. They can behave. I think we have plenty of free will in terms of how we actually behave, and I think that's true in groups as well. I think the Jewish community can certainly behave as we wish to behave, and we're a more privileged community. And I think that makes it more easy for us to behave as we wish to behave. So I don't take a determinist view. I don't take I don't take a strictly determinist view, I should say. I mean, of course, genetics plays a role in all sorts of things, but it's not 100%, and we can work around it.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. You bring up that there could be Jews who are aware of the alt-right compared to the normal Jew that could be like, I guess, paranoid all the time, or at least think that the alt-right is universally anti-Semitic, or that there could be
Right. Or just it's more powerful than it really is. I mean,
mm-hmm.
Talking essentially about Twitter trolls. I mean, that's essentially what when especially the Jewish journalists were complaining about the alt-right. I mean, that's essentially what they're talking about is people on Twitter that are trolling them, not institutions or I mean, the left controls institutions. The alt-right has Twitter trolls, so that's
Mm-hmm.
part of it.
It just seems now that the Jewish alternative's purpose is basically, I feel like, to get other Jews who are kind of concerned about the alt-right, but saying that it's okay to tip your toes in the water. Maybe I'm getting that from. Or is it more of an open message to say, hey, everyone on the alt-right, we're the kind of Jews that can help you on your side, and we can help create this dialogue and create more positive energy, especially for the establishment and everything else.
Yeah, it's really more, I mean, and we're going to be moving more in this direction, but it's really more directed toward other Jews, and not just to say that, okay, the alt-right isn't quite as bad as you think, but it's to give us sort of a roadmap to move forward. That's the thing that I think is kind of missing right now with the other parts of the alt-right. They talk about what they aren't and what they are, but they don't talk about, okay, here's how we move forward. Here's what we should be doing, and that's going to be kind of our focus moving. As we head forward. So it is more focused toward the Jewish community, and kind of changing the way we're looking at things. But at the same time, if it has the effect of showing some of these other people on the alt-right, non-Jews on the alt-right, that, hey, we're not all, opponents of you, because we're not opponents, even if they don't agree with us 100%, we're not opponents in the same sense that other people in the Jewish community are. If we can show that, hey, that's great too. But no, it's not our focus. I mean, I think we've done the, hey, alt-right, here's who we are. We've kind of done that. I don't think we have to hit that over the head anymore, and we're kind of going to move our focus toward, the Jewish community.
Yeah, that's pretty spot on. I mean, I think it's going to be weird because especially in the next I don't know where the Jewish alternative is going to go, but from what I've seen on your SoundCloud, I was excited for the first podcast, and yet you're already getting some people on the alt-right saying, this is a joke, that this is not serious, yeah, or that this is I don't know. It seems like it's like what I'm doing too. People give me I'll get hate mail every other day, but then I'll get love letters describing saying, yeah, oh, I love what you're doing. And it seems like what you're doing is this weird martyrdom where it's like it's something that's necessary to do. I don't know.
Right, that's exactly right. And you know what? I've just learned to completely ignore. There are going to be some people out there that aren't always going to have something negative to say. You just have to ignore it and just continue. Again, find your content. Find what you're trying to say. Find your identity. And produce content about that identity. That's the only way around it. Otherwise people, if all you're doing is reacting to the people saying, oh, you're not really one of us, if you just react to that, then, they'll eventually be right. Because all you'll be is just kind of a reaction to them.
Yeah.
You've got your own identity. And you just, at some point, you just have to ignore that stuff because there's no answer to it. I mean, especially when we're dealing with this is the problem again. Now that we're all in our own identities and we all have our own facts and we all have our own little worlds, we're never going to be in agreement. So you just have to ignore that and plow on forward with your own little world. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, I know it. You're just make more dank content, and then people will subscribe, and then they'll
Yeah,
say
I mean,
wrong things at first.
it's it's kind of a it's kind of it seems like kind of a almost a real kind of dystopian kind of view of things, but it's the world we're in right now. And you have to, and the thing is, I mean, I'm not saying that you should just be completely nihilistic about it. I mean, I have a value system. I mean, I'm trying to put out good stuff. I mean, I believe in what I'm doing. So it's not like I'm just doing this just for the hell of it. No, yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. No, I mean, believe in yourself and believe in what you're doing and try to do the right thing. But to move forward, you can't. The time where you could just debate things the way you could and let your kind of content kind of arrive at a bat or over. You've got to be able to produce your own stuff and ignore those people.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've been doing with these whole interviews too. I mean, my greatest enemy right
Yeah.
now is, believe it or not, it's not the far right or normies. It seems to be the Happa subreddit. The Happa subreddit, I've been getting the most views. I'll get like
What subreddit?
the
Which
Happa
subreddit?
Reddit. Do you know anything about it?
Hack subreddit? No, I don't think so.
HAPA. Well, I don't mean to give them any fame, so I'm not going to tell them what they're about. But small story
Oh,
short, they basically don't like me because I'm basically their worst nightmare boogeyman. I'm worse than Margaret Cho and Tila Tequila. I am their
oh
Nazi
no.
Asian, and
Oh
my
no.
dank
Oh, I
content,
get it. Okay,
my
I
dank
get it.
con, yeah, my dank content I've been producing with other Asians who sympathize with me. They basically hate watch my stuff, and they don't really comment. They just snirk. They just criticize on different websites, and I have to track them down. And they're my biggest enemy. Yeah, which is interesting. I mean, I don't know. Everyone has their weird enemies, but that seems to be
Okay,
the
I've got some weird ones. I get a little bit of flack from the liberal news, but again, the only way to get through that is just continue restating what our position is. React to them. Ignore people that call you stupid names. Just continue restating your position because we're not. Of course, that's the first thing that happens if you're kind of a minority and you don't go along with, well, you're not saying what the minority is supposed to say. You're this and the worst thing. You can't react to that. Again, you just have to keep moving forward. And eventually they get it. Either, the people that are at least willing to get it. And those that don't, well, they weren't going to get it anyway. So,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, I get plenty of that from, well, some of that from liberal news. Some of that from the neocons are the ones that seem to dislike us the most. Because I think they recognize that we're actually their greatest threat because we agree with them on some issues. But on the issues we don't agree, we have a much better argument than they do. So I think they recognize that we're a threat to them.
Yeah. I mean, are you gonna what are the future plans with the Jewish alternative? Do you plan to have articles featured like on Radix or even American Renaissance, or are you gonna put in a niche community on the web where you might get shouts from Luke Ford or maybe the Truth Will Live, or just stay on that area? Because it's like if you get your stuff on Radix Journal more often, you'll have a dialogue with the alt right. I think that's always somewhere to go. Or are you just gonna try to find the own niche as you go?
I really think I think we're not just to kind of piggyback on Radix or Amarin because again, it kind of limits what we're able to say and do. It limits what our focus is going to be. I mean, they don't, I don't want to just write about Jewish people in Radix, and I don't want people that read Radix want to just read about Jewish people. Again, that'd be what our focus is going to be from. And I don't see. I mean, if anything, we'll piggyback on platforms like the Jew Forward, or some of the Almin or some of the other wing, Jewish blogs. But I mean, we're certainly people like Radix or Amarin and those other platforms. We're not going to really aggressively focus on or target them.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I certainly would love to once, maybe under a pen name, or at least push some of my ideals there. I mean, there's been some push on Facebook, believe it or not. Facebook seems to be a secret website the alt-right is on, and they'll have gossips.
Yeah.
Like I'll say, some people will be like, oh, that Pilleater is probably making this stuff up, which is not true. They'll be like, oh, well, this is obviously an elaborate plan by Robert Stark, and it's him, and I made it, and it's not true at all. I'm not Robert Stark. And how can this guy be really serious? Well, that's the thing. It's like it seems like there's this whole gossip tabloid corner on Facebook, and once you address that, you know, you could find out what people really think. But once it gets into the established part, then people start to really think, oh, I think this guy really is true, and then maybe fans would come. It's like people start to question you for real if you're until you really mean something. But anyway, whatchamacallit, what are your future activities and plan to do on the Jewish Alternative?
I'll just continue putting out content. Hopefully do some more more articles. I've got a lot of different platforms that I can write for. Federalist, Jewish Daily Forward, and the Jewish Alternative, and also my own blog. So it's kind of deciding, okay, well, what belongs where. I think we're going to focus on and building a new Jewish identity, focus on sort of proselytizing to other Jewish people, and that's going to be our focus moving forward. And we'll continue putting up articles and podcasts, and we'll happily other people in the alt-right. But that's again, it's something we've done up to now, and with results. And I think it's time for us to kind of transition and continue, building our Jewish outreach, so to speak. But they are our focus moving forward.
Awesome. Yeah, my plan is just to do this good at the same thing I do over and over again. It might be podcasting for now, but I'm going to try to get a book out with some of my literature, and hopefully I can somebody can read from where I'm coming from, because people have a really convoluted message of what I'm trying to say. But it's really simple. I just need to write it in words, and people address to my main website and just further elaborate through writing and tell them to redirect to some of my previous interviews and audio recordings. But I think, and ultimately a book, if people were to read these things, then maybe they could understand theory much more. So that's what my plan is.
Very
but
cool.
Anyway, it's nice talking to you, Josh.
You too.
Take care.